Hello everyone, AJ here to give you a first look at a new tabletop role-playing game that I've been developing for quite some time. It's called The Legend of Ezmerelda. If you'd like to skip the background info or jump ahead to time index, this game blends historical fact within a fantastic realm of Eastern Europe during the 1400s, with the main town situated somewhere out in the French countryside. All characters, businesses, places, events, locales, and incidents are either the products of my imagination or used in a fictitious manner. Any resemblance to actual persons living or dead or actual events is purely coincidental. I said historical fact because much of this game was developed with the Romani in mind, and many aspects are meant to illustrate the overlooked atrocity of these often vilified people. Introducing the playable characters for The Legend of Ezmerelda. Starting in the top left, a different interpretation of Hugo's Ezmerelda. Ezmerelda is the main character of the story and formerly part of a dancing troupe with her husband. He was double-crossed by a corrupt constable and murdered many years ago. Since then, she's made her own way in the world, hoping to uncover the murderer and find justice for her husband. She is proficient at acquiring lost artifacts and often utilizes her dancing abilities to help move about more freely. But this is not without consequence. She is constantly pursued by gypsy hunters, seeking to collect the money for turning over Rom for arrest. Although historically speaking, many were just killed once they were turned over. Next down is Lady Erin. She's overly educated for any man's world, so she often plies her trades in secret. Else she could be labeled as possessed or crazy for having better ideas and skills. Her highly adapted ability to divine motives of those that cross her path has kept her a few steps ahead in most situations, and has allowed her to educate herself far beyond any traditional schooling in many different disciplines. Third character down on the left is Michael McDodd, a person who would be a prince, if his country had not given up their leadership to a more united providence. He still carries some unofficial authority throughout Europe with the use of his extensive wealth and political favors that have been acquired with his divine ability. The final character on the left side is actually a pair, the Gaffey brothers. They are mercenaries for hire, but the twist is, if they do not find their employer's cause justified, they might instead take up arms against them. They are inseparable, and those they deal with always find they are talking to both as one. Like one mind, the brothers support each other's weaknesses and share their skills and abilities through a robust survival capability coupled with a strong skill at bartering. Moving to the right side at the top is Imelda. She has contacts spread all across the world and often uses her perfected bartering ability to deal in little-known information, which she can leverage in future business deals. Because of her vast network of eyes and ears, locating people that have evaded even strenuous detection comes as easily to her as most people find it easy to breathe. The second character on the right is Craven. Not much is known about this individual, not even where they call home, but their skills and abilities are known far and wide. Likely if the wrong type of person caught a glimpse, that was the last they saw. Craven never works for money, and is not bound by contracts or political allegiance, and is instead driven by an intense desire to balance the scales of justice in their eyes. The third character down on the right side is Devane. He's quite familiar with the inside of a boxing ring, as he began his double-digit years working local events after his parents were mysteriously killed. Over time, he gained advanced medical knowledge and cultivated a strong grasp of anatomy. His time living on the fringes of society has sharpened his tracking skills and enhanced his spiritual awareness. The final character on the bottom right is Gabrielle. Having grown up in the wilds, she developed a oneness with the forest and the inhabitants within. Generally, she uses her adept skills and abilities to relieve the overprivileged of costly items and then deliver those items back to the local market. She has a keen sense of survival and is highly accurate with a recurve bow. All of this may seem overwhelming at first, but remember this is a role-playing game, and it's meant to be a bit more complex than most other tabletop games. Mostly, players will be looking at one map at a time and performing actions from their character sheet. First off, players have to decide to use a pre-made character or develop a new one. This is important, as using a pre-made character means getting right into the action, but creating a new character means building them from basically zero. One person may play all 6 character slots alone, but they must switch their color to match the character slot before performing any actions for that character. For this showcase, I'm going to use a pre-made, and I'm going to select the story's main character, Ezmerelda. After picking a starting point, a player's pawn is placed outside the Carolet City Jail, and they may move freely about the town without needing to roll. However, any players not within the limits of the city must roll to move and determine if they are ambushed. New characters start off with a small amount of gold, so buying a few items is a good idea before you leave town. Any player may use a skill or ability before performing an action, like trying to buy supplies. Some skills and abilities affect the entire party, but most only affect the player that used it. Sometimes using a skill or ability gives you a bonus for that usage, but even then you could still fail. Like life, you learn from failure and have a chance to receive a bonus for the next usage. After using a skill, that player must sleep to refresh it again. Players may also train a new skill or ability, but they can only do so in town. However, camping must be outside of town. Be aware that none of the shopkeepers take kindly to Romani. They'll call the guards, and the player inside the shop will be arrested. Getting arrested is tricky. Players must try and post bail, but the local constabulary is quite corrupt and will often take players' gold before tossing them out. Worse yet, they could discover a clue as to the whereabouts of the rest of the party. This means if a player cannot post bail, there's a chance a random party member could be arrested. If a player is able to safely navigate around the shopkeepers, they may pick up an available quest at the constable's office, or leave town and travel the countryside. Players may visit any of the other map locations, but they will all appear empty unless a quest specifically sends the player to that spot. Moving around the world is accomplished using the dice roller for movement. Players may use the full number as points to move the corresponding amount of positions, or use some of the points to perform an action as well. For example, player 1 rolls a 6, so that's 6 points. Instead of moving the full 6 positions, they instead move 5 and use a skill as the 5th point. Enemies encountered may be invited to the party after being defeated in combat, but only if a player is using a non-pre-made character. However, a single player may switch colors and invite the defeated enemy to the party and then switch their color back. Do not forget to switch your color back, though. Combat is turn-based, with the party members starting first, unless the party is ambushed, in which case the enemy goes first. Any character that has a high enough survival skill has a chance to detect an ambush before it happens, which means the party members start first. Enemy cards have several buttons that are used during combat. The attack button is what a player uses to perform an action on that enemy. The combat button is used by a player the enemy is attacking. Enemies will always attack the party member they are closest to. Any player may use the health button to broadcast the enemy's remaining health to the rest of the party. After an enemy is defeated, the invite button appears and the enemy may be invited into an empty character slot. Some paths will be blocked by locked doors or hidden walls. Only characters with certain skills or abilities will be able to bypass these obstacles. Keys may be purchased to unlock doors and treasure chests. Instead of dying, characters are arrested, transported to the city jail, and must remain there until they get free. And that wraps up the highlights for Legend of Ezmerelda. Check out the game coming soon to Tabletop Simulator on Steam.